How do we want to start, Kamelah?
I don't know. We both have an interesting story, so.
Yeah. Well, why don't I kick off with my story and then let you go. So Jelani Memory, founder, CEO at a kids company and the story with the company is it was a total accident. We were never supposed to be a company. It was only ever supposed to be a book, just for my kids. Back in 2018, I was at a company that I had started called Circle, parental controls, hardware, software, etc. But I wrote a book for my kids. I had 5 kids at the time, one new, one on the way, and I wanted my kids to always feel comfortable talking about racism with me. I've got 4 white kids and 2 black kids, so you can imagine that's an important conversation to happen in the house. So I wrote a kids book about racism, that's literally the title, so that they would feel comfortable. And something sort of amazing happened when I handed them the book. And I only made 1 copy because genuinely I was never going to do anything else with it other than give it to my kids. My kids were like, you should make more books on other important topics. You could do a kid's book about divorce, a kid's book about anxiety, a kid's book about depression, a kid's book about gender. So once they planted that seed, I couldn't let it go. And 3 months later, I found myself sort of negotiating my exit from the company that I'd started to start this wacky, wild kids book company on important topics. And we just celebrated our 2-year birthday, and it's working, yeah. Moms, dads, aunties, uncles, grandparents, they are showing up and purchasing now our 50-plus catalog of books that tackle topics like being transgender, anxiety, death, cancer. We've got a new book on Alzheimer's coming out. We just dropped one with LeVar Burton, which is kind of cool, on imagination. So it's been a pretty wild journey, and now we're sort of fashioning ourselves as a media company to make sort of podcasts, books, classes, and all sorts of media to empower kids. So that's my story.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kamelah Adams, the owner and creative director of Mimi's Fresh Teas. And Mimi's Fresh Teas is a social justice, women empowerment apparel company. And I just started the company in 2018 because I wanted to start a conversation by wearing your feelings on your chest. And what sparked the idea is I was a PTA executive at my kids' school, and I was the only black woman in this setting, and the school raised probably over $100,000. And there was no one of color there to speak on where we would allocate the money. And there were a lot of intense conversations that happened in those meetings, and sometimes I would be exhausted and just speaking my truth. And that's where the whole concept of Mimi's Fresh Teas came about, of just speak your truth and wear your truth. So that's my hashtag. Yep.
I love that. I think for both of us as people of color up here on this stage, we're going to talk about the power of storytelling and media for social change. And so I think my question to you is what's the power of wearing a t-shirt with a message? How have you seen that sort of bring social change?
That's a really good question. I'm a relationship person, so I really don't need a t-shirt to start a conversation with anyone, but the t-shirt, Make Racism Wrong Again, that one always sparks a conversation. And I don't know, I just feel like just making that presence out into the world, because racism, injustice, it's very difficult, it's very complex, but just by spreading just a small little message, I feel like it's important and it's powerful. Just by having one conversation with someone who might never feel comfortable wearing that shirt is, I think it's a great experience. For example, I have a story. So my friend was at a baseball game. She had the Make Racism Wrong for Once shirt on. And this woman came up to her and she said, "Why do you have that shirt on?" And she said, well, because this is my truth, this is my reality for me and my son. And the woman said, wow, that's really powerful. She said, I wish I had the courage to wear a shirt like that. And so my friend said, you can, wear your truth and speak your truth. So she went onto my website and ordered a shirt, so.
I love that. I love that. And for me, your shirts speak to me because they're like little microcosm stories. They're these powerful messages that get broadcast, and I think we all have a voice, and part of using that voice can be just wearing something on our sleeve or on our chest that says what we believe, and it is courageous, and I think can be world changing.
Absolutely. Sometimes as people of color, you don't always want to speak your truth, so you can always wear it. And that is really the whole concept of Mimi's Fresh Tees.
I love that. I love that. Well, let me shut up for a second and let you ask some questions.
Well, what challenges have you faced by having the book about racism? Let's start with that one.
Lots. And we pre-gamed this by having a chat earlier. One, being a black entrepreneur comes with its own challenges. Being a black entrepreneur in Portland comes with its own challenges. Being a black entrepreneur in Portland with a company like ours that focuses on social issues for kids comes with all sorts of problems. And, having grown up with racism, sort of have it be the waters that I've swam in, I don't think I quite expected the pushback and the virulence to be so strong. But October 5th, 2019, we launched 6 books. My book is one of those books. I'm really proud. It's a fun moment. I'm launching my second company, and man, Twitter lights up, and half of it is praise, is love, is encouragement, and the other half is just abject racism, which is ironic because I wrote a book for kids on racism. I don't know how that can be racist, but that's what I got accused of. And I think I did what anybody does, I think, or what I do when you experience racism is you feel shut down, or you get angry, or it's just a pure distraction. And it was really difficult for a few days until I had to remind myself, this is why I'm here. This is why these stories have to exist. I'd love it if we were in a post-racial, no racism, butterflies and rainbow society where everything was all good, but it's not. We're not there yet. And my book, just entering into the world, was an example of the fact that it needed to exist based on the response to it. And that's not to say the whole response was negative, but I was surprised. And I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We have similar stories, and we really never met personally, but our stories are so similar. Back in 2020, last year, I received a racist threat to my home address, threatening to murder me and my daughter with an AR-15, just for having a social justice t-shirt company. And that was not the last threat. I received one not too long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. So my point of that is that had I known that racism would show up to my doorstep by owning a social justice t-shirt company, women empowerment, by shirts that say be kind and love over hate, I probably would have did something a little different.
Yeah.
Might have opened up a plant store.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. I think it shows the power of story, right? You have messages on t-shirts that you sell on a website, right? And you're receiving threats to you and your family's life because of it. if that doesn't show the power that's locked into those messages, I don't know what does. And I can't help but think, it's one, good on you for sticking with it, because I'm sure it's not fun, it's not pleasant, and you're right. You could open up a plant store, and I don't think there's well, maybe there are anti-plant people. I don't know. But it'd probably be a lot easier.
Yeah, but I do want to say that the community did show up, because I posted the original letter, and I wasn't going to, but my daughter, who's a teenager, she's like, you should post that, you need to post it now. And by that time, she had already sent the image to some of her protest friends, and it was already out there, so I said I might as well post it. And just the love that I received from the community overshadowed the hate. Yeah. And that's where love over hate message came from, because a lot of people showed up. People I didn't even know sent me letters of support, and it was just beautiful. So that's what I lean on, is that the love does overshadow the hate, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah. What's your process in terms of developing the content for the shirts? Is that sort of, just you? Is that a team? Do you involve customers?
I do involve customers. It's a small little team that I have, but I usually come up with most of the concepts. My friend who is a teacher, she's always throwing me ideas of, you should create this shirt, this is what you should do. And just incorporating the message with art, that is how I come up with new shirts and new apparel. I'm also coming up with a new line November 1st, so it's dropping November 1st.
Oh, nice, yeah. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, if I can I share a story real quick? One of the things that I've come to believe about story plus kids, since we're a kids media company, is that kids, they haven't lost the impact of story on themselves, and they also haven't lost the sense of importance of stories. I think as we get older, we become adults, we start to think that stories are trivial, or at least when we say story, what we mean is something that's not true. We relegate it to, the story of the Pixar film, not the story of how I met my wife, or the story of how I started my company. And stories, those are stories. I think a lot of folks here are building, have built, or are in the middle of conceiving a brand, right? A company. That's a story. Believe it or not, that the sum of those parts is a story. And I can't remember her name, but the woman from Tillamook, right? The highest sort of part, the most valuable part of the company is the brand equity. I think that's another way of saying the highest value component is the story, right, of that brand. I say all this, part of how we create our books, make our books, tell our stories, create our podcasts, create our videos, is we all try and go back to that 6 or 7 year old version of ourselves that remembers the power of stories, and also to sort of ask ourselves, what were those stories that we needed when we were 7, right? What was that thing that we wish somebody told us, a story that we heard that said we were okay just the way we are, or that our feelings were valid, or that we were safe, or we weren't that horrible thing that somebody called us. And so we work out of that spirit to tell our stories, and it's been a really healing process, both as a dad, as a human being, as a kid who was abandoned by his dad at when I was 4 years old. Story weaves through all of that. It's not just for the company, it's not just as I raise my kids, it's sort of woven into my whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also too how I come up with a lot of my concepts, of just my own personal story, the story of my children, and also family members as well. the experience that I had just as a Black woman in Portland, I just really start jotting down ideas and, or sometime even having a conversation with someone and ideas pop up, and I'm like, ooh, that would be a good t-shirt or a good hoodie or a tote bag.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
So part of my, so now we've actually expanded. So we don't only just have t-shirts, but we have hoodies and tote bags, and that's the expansion of my brand. And really, like, a lot of customers, and we live in Portland. They're like, you should start making hoodies. You should start doing beanies. So that's what we're doing right now. We're in the process of that.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I feel like we're on our own journey of trying to figure out what product categories to expand into, more places that we can tell stories.
Absolutely. And, to remind everyone, it's a little challenging right now to develop new products because it's really hard to get garments.
Yeah.
There is a garment shortage.
Yeah, we're experiencing the same thing. So we print a lot of books, glue shortage, paper shortage, all over the place, which makes storytelling hard if you can't put it on something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what is next for the book about?
So much. So as I mentioned, and I'm going to mention this again and again, we got to make a book with LeVar Burton, and it was a kid's book about imagination, and LeVar has been generous, incredible as a co-collaborator with our company, and the hope is to do not just more with him, but I think tell more stories in more spaces. We just started into podcasts this year, but launched 8 original shows. We created what we call sort of master class for kids. It's called the Kids Class About. It focuses on life skills, big ideas, careers. But we have ambition to sort of go out and find more diverse voices, find more stories to tell. And what's great is our customers, they're screaming at us, right? The stories that they want to hear that are the most important stories that they think their kids need to hear. And I'll add on to that, because I think this is really timely right now, and we track this as a company pretty deeply. There are book bans happening all over the country in elementary classrooms for books that deal with slavery, that deal with racism, that deal with the Holocaust, where these books aren't being allowed into the classroom, and teachers are being reprimanded for them existing there. Now that might sound like some failed state somewhere around the world. No, it's in this country, and it's becoming more and more widespread as individuals in our company or country get uncomfortable with certain stories being told, even if they are true. And so for us, there's an urgency in continuing to tell more stories with the sense of, if we don't tell these stories, who will, right? These stories have to be told, and my hope is, and I think about my kids all the time when it comes to this, is that every 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, every kid growing up today, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, will have grown up with stories around racism and understanding their mental health and compassion and empathy and being able to deal with the death in the family, right? Or being able to manage their own feelings. And imagine a generation of kids that grows up with those stories. That's a better, brighter, more beautiful future, I think, I hope. And so we're really focused on, expanding the amount of stories that we tell.
I love that. Will you center something around teenagers? Because my kids feel like
Yeah.
they're too grown for your books.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I've got now 3 teenagers. Oh God, I have 6 kids, by the way. So you just can imagine what home looks like, and 3 teenagers is a mess. But they're the same way. So our streaming platform, A Kid's Class About, was really designed for older kids in mind, to put really wonderful, thoughtful, diverse mentors in front of kids that could show them. We worked with a famous architect in Mexico City to show what his job looks like. What is it like to be an architect? We worked with a wonderful musician, Liz Weiss, what is it like to be a musician? And then we worked with another wonderful mental health professional, Ross Zabo. It's a kids class about mental health. We talk about everything from anxiety, depression, suicide, you name it. We go there for teenagers, and I think in an authentic way. As I think about media made for teenagers, it kind of actually doesn't exist. Like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, those are all platforms built for adults, by the way. They're not built for teenagers. And if you've been tracking any of the news around Facebook, you'd know that Instagram is deeply harmful for young teenagers, especially young girls. So that's all to say, for us, we feel like we're doing something really new and innovative when it comes to teenagers. I'm still trying to crack the book thing for teenagers. My teenagers read books, but I can't tell them to read a book. You know, as soon as I try and tell them to read a book, they're like, I don't want to read that book. So if anybody has any ideas, I'd love to hear those ideas, by the way.
Yeah.
So you're expanding the offerings that you're going after. Are you going to step into new spaces in terms of telling new stories with your shirts?
Yes, absolutely. I have ideas stewing all the time. My mind just races. I'm like, oh, I should do this, and then I have to really just pinpoint what is important, what do my customers want. So I am coming out with a yoga line.
Hey.
November 1st. So that's exciting.
Awesome, yeah.
What else did you ask me? You asked me something else too.
Oh, now I can't remember.
And so, yeah, well, I hope to also do more collaborations as well.
Yeah.
I did a collaboration with the Portland Thorns a couple times.
Nice.
And I just love that organization. Someone from the Timbers reached out and asked if I had a T-shirt centered around, like, the things that were happening with the National Women's Soccer League. And at the time, I didn't. But I was like, actually, you know what? I need to create something.
He's like, we can.
Yeah. Give me a little time, and I will have that ready for you.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
yeah.
5 years from now, 10 years from now, where do you hope Mimi's Fresh Teas is?
Eventually, I would like to start, I've already started a little bit of a mentoring program for young high school girls, just kind of showing them the ropes of being an entrepreneur, because I feel like that is one of the things that we don't teach our young girls about, how to negotiate your wage, what does it mean, what's the difference between an LLC and an S Corp, just those things that they don't teach in school. So that's one idea I have. And two, I do have international sales, but just to continue to expand on that, and I just want everyone to have my apparel. So that's my goal. Just keep it simple.
There you go. I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep. What else did we talk about?
Honestly, I could keep asking you questions, but I feel like I'm getting a little annoying at this point. I'm kidding. I'm not getting annoying. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I'll keep talking then. I also did a collaboration with Portland Gear this year. Was that in February? So that was really fun, and some of the proceeds went to the Maurice Lucas Foundation. We did a shirt that honored Maurice Lucas, and David Lucas was so excited, so we surprised him with a shirt to honor his dad. And then we also paid homage to the Albina district, and that was a cool shirt, and we talked about redlining. So it's a shirt with a map that's redlined, and it says Albina District PDX in the middle of it. And I feel like there's a lot of new people from Portland, and they don't know the richness of the Albina district and where that district is. It's over there by Mississippi Avenue. So we had some discussion around that when we did our collaboration. So
nice. Are you originally from Portland?
yeah, I'm born and raised here.
Wow. So FYI, I'm from Portland too, You will never see this happen ever again.
Nope, you won't.
Okay, I'm just saying that 2 black people running companies on the same stage who grew up in Portland, Oregon. So just mark this moment. Take a photograph.
Yeah. We're unicorns, that's for sure.
Say that again.
We're unicorns.
Unicorns, yeah, yeah. No, I love this city. Born and raised, and I would never want to live anywhere else. I genuinely, I love being here. I love raising my kids here.
I do too. I went to Grant High School and then went to PCC and Portland State, so it's definitely where my roots are. All my family is here, so I don't know where else I would move to.
Well, that brings up, so I went to formerly Wilson High School, Woodrow Wilson, now Ida B. Wells High School.
Ooh.
That's storytelling, y'all, right? The story that it told to have my high school named for however many, few decades after, one of our U.S. presidents who, held deeply racist ideas for a very long time, to have it renamed to a journalist / activist. That's a powerful story. And I can tell you, I watched the message boards go with the alumni from my high school, and not a lot of people were happy about it. I can tell you that, because the thing that happens with stories, I think, is, especially when something bad happens, and I think we can all relate to this, is you want to keep it in the past. Can we just move on? Can we just sort of forgive and forget? Or how do we judge, somebody in the past by today's values? And I think for people of color, especially here in Portland, Oregon, it was a powerful message to have that high school renamed, and that stuck, that didn't just get voted down in some school board meeting where too many loud voices got in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how they're renaming high schools and schools just around in Portland. I'm waiting for them to rename Jefferson though.
Yeah, that feels long overdue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what name they would come up with.
I don't know. We could workshop it
We
here.
should.
Put it on a T-shirt and then we're done.
Yep.
Well, this was really wonderful chatting with you here.
You too.
And then you guys, you're involved too because you watched, but
Yeah.
That's it.